Hello and welcome to Stratezine. We have a little news recap video for you.
Creating a Christmas list but don't know what you want? With the holidays quickly approaching, social media today reported that users are turning to Pinterest for gift ideas, either for themselves or for others. Pinterest has taken action and provided a way to make searching for gifts easier for the consumers by adding a new quick save feature that allows you to create your own personal wish list. Now users can also view celebrity curated gift guides or create their own. The tool saves your pins to create your own shoppable holiday wish list. Celebrities like Paris Hilton, Emma Chamberlain, Alicia Keys, and RuPaul are among those with celebrity-curated gift guides that you can search. Gift guides have also been curated by brands, influencers, publishers, and Pinterest. Now when you go to Pinterest, you'll get ads for gift guide inspiration with over 1,000 gift guides created. It isn't just a gift guide for consumers, though. All the pins in the gift guides link directly to the products, making it easier for the consumer to find and purchase a product while increasing revenue during the holiday season for sellers. So dust off your Pinterest and head there now to find gift inspiration for you this holiday season.
Today, my name is Emma and I'm here with Dev. Today we're joined by Professor Christian Malum, a communications professor specializing in video production and mass media, and Professor Abby Nelson, a communications professor specializing in digital and social media.
Today, we want to explore in depth a shift that social media creators are having as they're trying to break into traditional media. Over the past few years, we've seen a lot of influencers transition into traditional media. And while some influencers have done really well, others have struggled to be successful on their new platforms. We want to talk about their motivations for changing platforms, the challenges they face in that change, and some of the implications this media crossover has for us as digital media professionals. Let's get right into it.
Yes. So we have seen a lot of influencers migrate, especially during pandemic and post-pandemic. So people like Charli D'Amelio. So Charli, she is a TikToker who came to fame for her viral dance TikToks and then made her first television appearance in a Sabra hummus ad during the Super Bowl. She was recently in a Dunkin' Donuts ad with Ben Affleck this year. And she even has her own show at the moment. It's a reality TV show featuring her sister, who's also an influencer, and her parents. But the show has a 2.8 out of 10 rating on IMDb. It has 40% popcorn meter, less than 3 stars ratings on everything. It's not doing very well. She has millions of followers, 212.8 million across all of her platforms, but she's just not doing too hot as she's trying to jump over. So what are some of these reasons that influencers would have for trying to break into reality TV and more traditional media platforms?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So I feel like we see it a lot right now with social media, kind of bridging that gap with traditional media, right? Charli D'Amelio, for instance, she was on Dancing with the Stars, season 31, I believe. And that was a big jump in what we saw, how Dancing with the Stars, right? We saw this change in how they marketed. It expanded their reach in a way that we hadn't seen before. This season 33, I believe, we saw record-breaking numbers on the, in the voting records, so it's bringing in a different audience. So I can see why they want that. I can see why, you want that social media influencer on your TV show. However, on the opposite side, here's Charli D'Amelio, who might not be doing so well on the traditional media side, but I mean, that's a whole different set of skills. If you think about it, they have to develop these skills of being in front of a camera. They don't have creative control anymore. Where you look at a social media influencer, they have complete creative control, right? They can come in and say, this is what I want to do. They're also specialized in that short form video, right? They can talk in that super short form video and then can keep going. And I mean, it's hard to switch to then long form video. So I can also see the other side.
Yeah, it is interesting. They do need to develop a more robust set of skills. They are remarkably skilled in what they're doing with those short form videos, but there is an on-screen presence that doesn't get to. I mean, if you think about the average kind of TikTok or even YouTube videos, having jump cuts, just visible cuts, is totally acceptable if you're doing a how-to video, an explainer, or even something funny or entertaining. Having just these cuts, people watching TV traditionally in their homes are not really going to tolerate that. That's for the kind of the small screen, if you would. And so they need to learn how to kind of deliver in a convincing, compelling, engaging way to a new audience. You can see why the TV folks are interested in getting these personalities on them on their shows, because they trailing clouds of glory do they come with massive audiences, huge audiences. But those audiences are sometimes quite niche as well. And so that niche audience might not necessarily translate. It could be, I mean, she's got millions of followers, she's got billions of likes. And so, but what she's liked for by that particular niche group might not necessarily get you onto mainstream television, where you have to have much broader appeal. For kind of primetime TV shows like Dancing with the Stars.
Totally. And kind of speaking of Dancing with the Stars, we did think that was interesting because when Charli D'Amelio was on, she did pretty well. That was kind of the first start of influencers appearing on Dancing with the Stars. And since then, we've seen a ton of other influencers that have gone on. Her mom was also on the show that same season, I believe. And dancing is what Charli was known for. Like, that's what got her start on TikTok. She was getting blown up for all of these dance videos she was doing. So having that kind of same, I guess, performance aspect of it probably really helped.
And like you said, it is her wheelhouse, isn't it? I mean, she is a dancer, so you would expect her to do quite well on the dancing front, which is good.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that bleed from, not to get too into Dancing with the Stars, but we've seen it bleed from, yes, we're bringing on stars that have an influencer presence, but we've also seen now the pros come in with building a presence. In the last 2 seasons, we've seen Riley Arnold come in. She now has 1 million followers on both TikTok and Instagram.
Wow.
And we've watched the pros now build that, right? Because we want to see those shows grow and bring a whole different audience to these shows, right? That have been on for now 33 seasons. We see it in all reality TV. I mean, we could talk about Bachelorette, we can talk about all of those as well that bring on a social presence. So that's kind of where I would talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, what constitutes a star nowadays? That kind of thing. I mean, back in the day, it was to be a sports personality. You'd won a medal for something. That's why you were famous. You discovered something scientifically, or you were in the entertainment field. But the entertainment field was only so many channels or the movies, or you were a radio personality because you probably didn't have the face for the screen or whatever it was, or maybe you just had more of a personality, so you were on radio. But nowadays, because of the democratizing nature of all of this technology. I mean, who's his face? Justin Bieber. I mean, where does he start? Yeah, he's discovered online, and then he blows up, and so maybe he's one of the kind of the OG kind of characters for what we're talking about now, where people are able to kind of cross over from that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So kind of going back to those skills that are very different, like there's also a lot of overlap between what's needed to do like short form, personal, I'm running all of my own social media and things that have a bigger production like these reality TV shows. What are some of the problems that somebody who is used to making short form content would run into as they were trying to get into something that was more produced? This is maybe a question more for you and your experience with video production.
Yeah, I do think that that as they make that migration, I mean, don't get me wrong, I do think that when these stars do become stars and they blow up and they start to get these extraordinarily large followings, their production value invariably goes up. And by production value, I mean just the time and expense and effort and the kind of entourage of technical help and people who are going to come up with engaging ideas. They're going to bring more people in order to make that happen. I don't think that you're going to continually get the same kind of practices that they've been doing that got them to where they are. So I do think that the production value invariably just goes up anyway. If you look at season 1 or the first videos of some of these influencers back in the day, they are a little bit janky sometimes, but there's a charm to that. And again, like we said, with jump cuts and all of these other things, that's part of the language of online video nowadays. But I do think some of the things that they would be better, rather than just technical help, is something that you can just avail of yourself of, as a someone who wants to tell stories or engage with audiences online or on TV or on radio or whatever. But more importantly, I think that the other skills that they need to acquire would be an understanding, more of a broader kind of conception of ideation of what's going to work for these different audiences, these different spaces and places. Because ultimately an audience is just an audience. That's just a group of people who are into what you're doing. They're kind of invested. They're willing to exchange either time or money or both in order to engage with what they think is valuable from you. And so whether they're found in a kind of a niche kind of area online, albeit a massive niche, a global niche, yeah. So we do get millions and billions of likes, etc. But like I say, I think the more sensible thing that they could do is not just say, oh, we could have more cameras and bigger microphones because we're going on TV. In order for there to be more hits than misses, they need to be advised well. So we're talking about kind of seasoned program makers who are amphibious, dare I say, not just kind of like a Simon Cowell on the music kind of scene, who's pretty traditional, to be fair, but he has successfully navigated the kind of this new media age. But people who understand both the online space and the traditional space, who are able to advise and are a little bit kind of agnostic. Yeah, they're not like wholly partial to, oh, online's best, TV's best. They're all just audiences and they're all just channels and platforms ultimately.
Totally. So kind of talking about some of the transition stuff that we've seen, especially with like a lot of these YouTube, TikTok creators, they focus a lot on storytelling. And we've seen a lot of these big like storytelling personalities or like comedy personalities try and get into that kind of scene traditionally. There's a lot of potential problems that they face as they migrate over to those traditional platforms. Lily Singh, for example, she has over 14 million subscribers on YouTube and just as many followers on her Instagram. Her YouTube videos have millions of views, and in 2018, Forbes ranked her as the number 10 in their list of highest paid YouTube stars. In 2019, she did start hosting this show called A Little Late with Lily Singh, but her IMDb rating for that show was only a 1.5 out of 10. But Singh was a really popular influencer, so watching her, jump into this medium where she should have really thrived, especially as she was so good at talking, conversing with other people, and then just to get such a low rating was a pretty big shock. So what kind of things, like in that traditional broadcasting sphere, kind of hinders these influences, I think, from being able to reach the success that they were seeing in their online, more social media platforms?
Yeah, I think this is a great example of not being able to translate it right. I believe she has tell me how many followers she has, 13.4 million or something.
Yeah, 35.2 million across all of her platforms.
Okay, 35, I love that. So, right, she has this audience, as Christian was talking about, this big audience, but we can't translate it over to traditional media. But think about how she's telling those stories on Instagram, right? It's right in front of her face. It's those short form videos. It's snippets of her life. And then when you go to a traditional, that's not there anymore. She doesn't have that creative control to come in and say, this is, my rectangle right here that's saying this is me today. It's like, no, you actually tell a different type of a story. There is a bigger production value. There's that comes in that we didn't see that translate very well.
Maybe as well, there is this idea, an erroneous, incorrect idea, that audiences can simply be picked up and drop them off like that. And it's like, well, do that at your peril. Yeah, audiences are people, first and foremost. They've got likes, they've got dislikes, they've got very usually personal reasons as to why they like specific brands and properties and different kind of entertainment juggernauts like some of these characters. And so if executives and decision makers and stakeholders simply think, again, incorrectly, that they'll kind of golden goose it and go, wow, there's 13 million people just sitting there ready to be plonked onto our platform. And it's like, no, they're going to give it the old who moved my cheese routine really, really quickly. And their world is going to be rocked. Because as audiences, I mean, think about how we talk about the brands that we have in our lives. Oh, I love that. I hate that. Do you know what I mean? So we've got this very kind of personable way of describing the things that we're into, the music that we like, the entertainers that we follow, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, again, that the more successful ones that are able to translate or to move from the online to the traditional space are the ones that are thinking carefully about, okay, what do we need to keep the same? What can we not? What must we repeat that we are doing online that makes it this successful in order for this to translate to this other platform? And don't consider that at your peril. Really, you could have a big old flop on your hands. And I think that's because we're creatures of habit, aren't we? We like what we like, and maybe we can't always articulate why we like it, but we do know what we like, and we like what we're familiar with.
Yeah, and off of that, you also like to consume media. Think about your own consumption, right? I consume media probably different than you consume media. And so her audience can't translate over there. That's a habit they have, right? They're on their phones consuming short form video to then go to a traditional media. They might not watch TV that night, right? That's not how they're consuming media. So that's also a factor of that audience.
Yeah, that is a fantastic point. The idea of television. I mean, less so nowadays. We've got way more TV on demand. But Dancing with the Stars. I mean, the Super Bowl is entirely an event. But for the most part, primetime TV is an event as well. Dancing with the Stars, America's Got Talent, that kind of thing. It's Friday night, and so this is how these things are working. It is scheduled. It's part of their expecting you to kind of change your behaviours in order to fit in. And back in the day, we were all hostages to the TV. I mean, the only thing before videoing things, recording stuff on the TV, you had to be there or you'd miss out. And so we were there, we chose to be. But nowadays, because it's kind of on demand, people can just kind of catch up whenever they like. And I dare say that people could do that. There's still the on-demand idea. You can play and rewind and pause live TV, of course. But I think it's a big ask of people who are misunderstanding audiences. And you can't pick them up and plonk them somewhere, and you can't suddenly get them to change their viewing habits, as Abby says.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah. Do you have any suggestions or ideas of how we could better, manipulate these audiences to kind of move back and forth between platforms? Like, are we seeing anything that's working well or things that are not working? So maybe we could restructure them a little bit.
Yeah. I always just go back to the basics, right? Look at your data, look at your audience, understand who they are and where they watch you. And then understand that those numbers might not look great on IMDb, right? So that might be success to her, right? Based off of her data and what she's looking at. So sometimes at an outsider perspective too, we're like, oh yeah, but we don't understand what her goal was with that. What was her objective? Who was she trying to reach? Did we actually see her numbers grow on her platform on Instagram? And because it brought in a whole new audience, right? We're bringing in a different demographic. So depending on what those objectives are, I think you just have to be really strong as a brand, as an influencer, right? They are their own brand, and say, what is the goal here? And then understand that IMDb might not translate that, but what was the ultimate goal?
Moments of downtime during, work hours.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess as we are watching a lot of these medias, a lot of them are crossing over. We kind of talked about how we're seeing not just the social media influencers going over traditional TV, but we're seeing people from Dancing with the Stars, from The Bachelorette, all starting to become these really big social presences as well. Do we think we're going to start seeing more of these lines blurring in the future, or do you think it's more likely that they kind of keep separate, just with those different audiences, the different perspectives that it takes to kind of maintain both of those different mediums?
Yeah, I think we can expect the lines to be well and truly blurred. Gone are the days of where this is how we roll. I'm a TV person. I mean, yeah, pick someone who's really traditional from the TV, like, I don't know, Gordon Ramsay, Jimmy Fallon, yeah, Ellen DeGeneres, all of these. They've got huge social media, and they have had for years and years, really. And so as soon as people who are looking to influence and move audiences, whether they are brands or celebrities who are brands in and of themselves, of course, they are always looking for successful channels to reach and make impressions on their targeted audiences. And so the ones who are most successful are the ones who are able to view the whole social media and the traditional media offering as just one big Swiss Army knife. These are just tools. These are just tools. Today, we're going to be doing this. We've got a corkscrew today. We've got a toothpick tomorrow. We've got a nail file over here. And they're going to do, not to stretch the metaphor too much, but in order to just get the job done, we need to engage with audiences and the ones who are switched onto it. And most importantly, I think that they need to be reflexive too. To the market and to the audiences. If the audiences are expressing a desire through their habits and their behaviours to engage with something at a certain time and in a certain way, they should be reflexive to that and go, oh, hey, then that's let's give them what they want. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's some reasonably sage advice. Do you?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think we're going to see it continue to grow. We see it, like we've said, with influencers and personalities, but we see it with brands. We see it, on all aspects of just that continuing to grow and reach. I mean, ultimately, right, you want to reach the biggest audience possible. You start at a niche and then you usually grow it. And so this crossover, we just see it right there. So,
So as, digital creators, as this continues to blur, what are some more of the implications that will have for us? What are some things that we would likely need to prepare for so we can be those amphibious people that understand kind of all aspects of everything and be prepared to use every platform at our disposal?
Be ready to adapt. Be ready to change. Be ready to stay up on trends, know what's coming. Stay very educated on what new opportunities lie, depending on if you have an influencer as a client or you have a brand as a client. You have to be able to adapt to the changes and the opportunities that are there for that growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd wholly agree. The idea of adaptability and just being willing to be reflexively responsive to emergent circumstances is huge. And being up on trends technically, that kind of thing. I mean, being a technician is really important, understanding the ins and outs and how these platforms and channels work. But probably maybe even a little bit more important than that is just a really sound understanding of demographic, psychographic, kind of geographic considerations about audience, understanding audience and a little bit of kind of psychology as well, a bit of sociology in there as well. Why do people do what they do? And kind of be really interested in that and follow that. I mean, just as one more thing would be Duolingo, I think, are an impressive brand. They dominate, or at least appear to dominate, the kind of language learning space. And their core demographic that they target big time, I think it's like 14 to 22-year-olds, something like that, like 16 to 24-year-olds. And they're trying to get people while they're young. And one of the reasons is that your brain's just more plastic when you're younger. You can kind of, you're better off learning a language when you're young. But they are a good example of being reflexive and seeing where their audience were. Well, they first started off making lots and lots of adverts for TV. And I think they've pared back almost completely from advertising on television. And they're almost exclusively unhinged advertising on TikTok and on Insta. And it's doing really, really well. And that's where that core demographic kind of resides. So smart.
Smart. That's honestly kind of cool. The idea of like making sure we're aware of where our demographics and our audiences live and watching how they adapt to media habits as well. Because Duolingo has really thrived with that whole like unhinged media consumption. I know I've seen them come up on my For You page, but I don't think my mom has ever seen one of their adverts.
Sure.
So yeah, it's kind of cool that like, I guess a lot of this just kind of wraps back up to what we're doing with our audiences and how we're being aware of that.
Yes. Well, thank you both so much for joining us today. This has been an amazing discussion. Thanks to all of you who are watching. We have another news recap video for you, and then we will see you all viewers next week.
Meta's Threads and X, formerly known as Twitter, are both now facing serious competition from Blue Sky, a new fast-growing social media platform that's rapidly gaining millions of users. In just 2 weeks, Blue Sky's user base jumped from 13 million to 22 million, a massive surge that's shaking up the social media landscape. In an interview with the Washington Post, Jasmine Enberg, vice president and principal analyst at eMarketer, stated, "While Blue Sky's user base is still only a fraction of that of Threads, Meta clearly sees it as a potential threat." In response, Meta has rolled out new features on Threads like customizable feeds to mirror what's been driving Blue Sky's rapid growth. For those of us who work and live in the digital world, this shift in social media dynamics means the platforms you use for news, networking, and expression are ever evolving at a fast pace. As these platforms continue to evolve, it's important for us to stay ahead of the curve, both to stay connected and to understand how these changes are shaping the future of online communication.